Hello, US102 CCAP classes. What I want to do right now is kind of go over a summary of what we have learned, um, and then talk a little bit about the expectations for the exam. And that's going to be a lot what a lot of you are thinking about. First of all, you'll notice that it's not that many points. Uh, but okay, first of all, so let me back up then. Let me just first talk quickly, not too long, just a summary of what we went over. Um, I noticed that a lot of you enjoyed getting kind of a wide range of videos, and we covered, um, you know, like for instance, the Straw Hat Riot, which is something I learned about later in life, to be honest. Now, this gets incorporated into also us talking about, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, and all of that, and uh, Hoover. And I think a few of you in your essays uh, pointed out or observed that, well, some of you just simply saw the humor of the Straw Hat Riot, and there is a certain kind of comicalness to it for sure. But then there was also some of you that were saying, maybe this was representing something else that was boiling, in society. Like was there more to it than just that? Like why did this really happen? Was it just over hats? And I think that's an interesting question. And I feel like there's probably something there. What I and I've done a little side research on this, but I feel like there could be more research to be done. It's an interesting thing to think about, but it shows how um clothing and these conventions in the middle of societal tensions and unrest can come out of nowhere, right? So when they always say history repeats itself, I always say yes by surprising us. That's how it repeats itself. Now we're going to see later on the Zoot Suit riots had a more clear political set of issues that were taking place, and issues of race and patriotism and our nationalist views and other societal tensions that were much more obvious beyond just the idea of somebody upset about zoot suits. Okay, so we'll talk about that again later in the semester. Now, looking at Hoover, I hope that you noticed. I don't always get an opportunity to do this to give you, a glimpse of something where there's a positive aspect brought up about something and then a negative, getting two sides of the story. And let me tell you, uh, once you're getting involved in history and if you start studying it, there's some really passionate views about Hoover. Hoover still gets talked badly about or really defended like in a sensitive way, where people are really like, he's really misunderstood and misrepresented. I had this happen at one of my jobs years ago. And then I remember I had a job interview for another university, and they let us pick whatever topic we want to do to kind of like see how well I would do a lecture in person. So I picked the bonus march and what happened when US war veterans were being crushed by Hoover in those camps, and just the controversy of that. And oh boy, he really went out of his way to I think he was really annoyed that I put Hoover in a negative light, and he wanted to somehow redeem Hoover, which is fine. Um, so I'm glad you're getting a little exposure to that, and you're going to see it now. FDR, who we're also covering now, and gets incorporated into our discussions as we, are going out of World War One. We have the temporary, good times, and then the depression hits, and then your FDR and World War II. He also has a lot of controversy. I wanted to find better videos to kind of go over that. Maybe if I had more time, I could have found the right ones. I didn't. Um, we have not. I didn't put up that much for reading on FDR. I did one on socialism in him, and it's its own kind of perspective. Look, I want you to mainly think about the way that the article is pitching the discussion. You don't have to buy into the whole narrative, but I thought it'd help you at least kind of understand where people love and hate and revere FDR. Okay, also. Um, Now, I covered the Smoot-Hawley Act. Also, wow, super, super timely. And I posted some videos dealing with Trump and tariffs. As I mentioned, it's hard to be neutral. I said I wanted to do some nuance. Maybe you didn't think I was too nuanced. Well, first of all, I want to say a few things. I noticed, as our discussion showed, a lot of you were not even aware at all. And I don't know what all of your politics are, but you were not aware that we have been in the middle of massive drama with tariffs, and that this is one of Trump's most passionate policies that him and his team really feel is hyper important and are claiming success. And then there's the rest of the world against this view that's there. Now, the reason why I can't, it's hard to put in too much on the other side is remember how, like, in this Holly with Hoover, he had 1,000 economists write him a letter saying this is not a good idea. Okay, Trump's kind of in the same situation. The overwhelming majority of economists don't even understand the way he's interpreting economics, and you'll just have to research that yourself. I don't have time to fully go into that. But for example, he talks about trade imbalances being a negative thing. But if you buy more from somebody else, it doesn't mean that you're being ripped off. It means that you have more buying power. But the way that him and his team is interpreting it is that all these countries that we have extreme trade imbalances with, I mean, that means that we're being disadvantaged, while economists are saying it's the other way around. You'll just have to look at it yourself. And to be honest, I wasn't really quite like, this was a lot for me to learn about too, because the discussions that have been created since he started are newer ones. This is even more unprecedented than the Smoot-Hawley Act. And definitely, I think it's fair to say that he's seen tariffs, our current president, as leverage in negotiating with other states. But it's a game of tug and war. They go on, they go off. We're in deep conflict with Canada for the first time ever in our history since the War of 1812. And there's just a lot going on. So I'm actually going to talk more about this as we get to the end of the semester, because I'm going to try to talk about U.S. history, where we're at now. And as we know, with what's going on with our current president, whether you're a fan or not, things move rapidly and change quickly. And so we'll see where things are at and how I need to try to present it. And I will really try to show all sides. I will say this, that just like Hoover, the official position of the U.S. government is that this is supposed to help focus on making the economy for the United States better. It's just that sometimes the question is, well, are those things working? And what we see in the history of politics and history of the United States that we're covering, some things are more obvious than others, and trying to draw in is a policy working or not for the way that they're hoping it to. So you take the New Deal coming up that we're talking about with Roosevelt. Was that really the impetus for getting us out of the Depression, or was it simply joining World War II? So these are questions that then get brought up, and all of that. Also, last thing I just want to say, what I'm hoping you're noticing, this is around the time that we're really seeing the shift of the Democratic Party and Republican parties, the way that we conceptualize them. Okay, so um, Republicans were viewed as more or less as the progressive, or to, for lack of a better phrase, to the left of things. Um, it was the Democratic Party that was the slave party that officially passionately argued in defense of slavery prior to the Civil War, and uh, made a lot of apologetics for it even after. And and then, it's interesting, right? The first non-white president of the United States comes out of the Democratic Party, which was originally the slave party. Well, what happens is there's shifts in the way that presidents under the political party, like the way that they handle things, and it ends up just changing. It just changes. I mean, I don't think it's like a deliberate thing. It just kind of happens. So let's take FDR. You're going to see coming up that he really helps really put in the welfare state. And so the Democratic Party is going to be associated more or less with that, while that wasn't the reputation that the Democrats would have had prior, right? Of that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind moving forward as well. And so I think that that's mainly the things I wanted to talk about. Okay, so the exam. This is not a lot to explain. If you have come to understand what's expected with the weekly essays, you're just writing a longer weekly essay, but following the instructions of what I said. There's still some folks having a hard time understanding the citation rules, even though I've went over this a lot and I've given examples. You're going to have to use citations. That's it. And they have to be within, and they have to still be only from the modules used in class. There has to be dates. That's it. Basically, all the rules that I've been kind of talking about. This is what an essay is supposed to look like. This is what it has to look like. Just do that, and it's worth 25 points. And that's how this is going to work. Okay. How I set up my class is mainly that if you're keeping up with the work, you're going to get an A in my class, or a B, a high grade. Okay. I don't make all of the weight of the grade on the exams. Okay. So yeah, it's important. I'm not trying to say take it lightly, but that's just the way I do my approach. So it's all about keeping up in the class and keeping up with the work. And with the essays, just getting on board with what I've said has to be done on an essay. Okay. So remember, first thing I do is I look at an essay and print. Is there any parentheses with a citation from the module there? There should be citations mainly for putting things in your own words, but also after direct quotes. And then I look to see if there's any dates. If the instructions are followed, I look at the essay. Usually if you've got all those lined up, you got full points. That's where we're at. So if you need anything or have a question, please don't forget to contact me. Don't forget about the Zoom office hours when they come up. And anyways, I hope everything's going well. We'll be in touch.